A devastating plane crash in one of the busiest air corridors in the United States has left 67 people dead and a nation in mourning. But as the investigation unfolds, one voice has risen above the rest, not to offer solace, but to sow division. President Donald Trump has turned this tragedy into a political weapon, using it to attack his opponents and push his agenda. Today, we're diving into the details of the crash, the alarming failures that led to it, and how Trump's response exposes the dangers he poses to America and the world. On the surface, this crash seems like a tragic accident. A plane and a helicopter collided near a runway, both plummeting into a frozen river below. But as the details emerge, it's clear that this was a disaster waiting to happen. The control tower at Ronald Reagan National Airport was severely understaffed on the day of the crash. Instead of 4 controllers managing the busy airspace, only 2 were on duty. One person was handling tasks meant for 2, leading to critical lapses in communication and coordination. To make matters worse, the helicopter involved was flying half a mile outside its approved flight path and at an altitude of 300 feet, far higher than the standard 200 feet for helicopters in that area. Why did it deviate? Was it pilot error or something more sinister? And perhaps most shockingly, this wasn't the first time such a close call happened. Just 24 hours before the crash, a similar near-miss occurred in the same airspace. Warnings were ignored, and the risks were downplayed. How could such a high-risk corridor be so poorly managed? This tragedy was preventable. The combination of understaffing, protocol violations, and ignored warnings created a perfect storm. In times of tragedy, leaders are expected to offer comfort and unity. But Donald Trump is not like other leaders. Instead of waiting for the investigation to conclude, he seized the moment to attack his political rivals and push his divisive agenda. In a fiery press conference, Trump blamed the crash on what he called the failures of the Biden and Obama administrations. He criticized their diversity and inclusion policies, claiming that incompetent individuals were hired in critical roles. His remarks were not just insensitive, they were outright dangerous. Trump went further, making controversial comments about people with disabilities, suggesting that they were unqualified for such high-stakes jobs. These remarks have sparked outrage, with many calling them divisive and inappropriate. But here's the truth. The investigation is still ongoing. No official cause has been determined. Yet, Trump was quick to point fingers at air traffic controllers and the helicopter pilot. His rush to politicize the tragedy has left many wondering, is this about safety, or is it about scoring political points? Trump's response is not just controversial, it's dangerous. By turning a tragedy into a political weapon, he's undermining the very institutions that need to be strengthened to prevent future disasters. This isn't the first time Trump has exploited a crisis for his own gain. From his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic to his attempts to overturn the 2020 election, Trump has consistently put his personal interests above the well-being of the American people. His response to this crash is just the latest example of how dangerous his rhetoric can be. By attacking diversity and inclusion policies, he's not just scapegoating marginalized communities, he's undermining the very principles of equality and fairness that America stands for. And let's not forget, Trump's divisive rhetoric doesn't just affect America. It has global consequences. His attacks on institutions, his disregard for facts, and his willingness to exploit tragedy for political gain set a dangerous precedent for leaders around the world. As the investigation continues, here's what we're waiting to learn. Black box analysis. Both the cockpit voice recorder and flight data have been recovered. These will provide crucial insights into what went wrong in those final moments. Pentagon's role. The helicopter involved was a military training aircraft. The Pentagon has launched its own investigation, adding another layer to this complex case. Policy changes. Will this tragedy finally force a reckoning in how air traffic control is managed? Will staffing levels and safety protocols be re-evaluated? One thing is clear. This crash has exposed serious flaws in the system, and the American people deserve answers, not political grandstanding. Amid the debates and the politics, let's not forget the 67 lives lost in this tragedy. They were mothers, fathers, siblings, and friends. As we seek answers, we must also honor their memory by ensuring that such a disaster never happens again. But we must also recognize the dangers of leaders like Donald Trump, who exploit tragedy for personal gain. His rhetoric is not just divisive, it's a threat to the very fabric of our society. What do you think about Trump's response to this tragedy? How should leaders act in times of crisis? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of the stories that matter.